Hello and welcome to my channel, the Ancestral Social Critique. This is a fascinating channel that is an exploration of modern technology and ancient thinking. We look at our society from an entirely different point of view. We look at our society from the mechanisms and precepts of what our race used thousands of years ago. The survival imperative. As much as we've become comfortable with our modern lifestyles, we are still limited to and beholden to the laws of the planet. Natural disasters didn't disappear just because we developed comfortable living arrangements. We still have to look at those real-world circumstances and ask the question of whether or not our behaviors are going to bring us a new tomorrow, or are we really just rebuilding yesterday? That's a difficult question to ask, and even more difficult to answer. It means taking a microscope to the world around us and really looking at who we are as humans, really looking at our behavior, looking at the historical patterns of our behavior. Societies have collapsed over the last 4,000 years, and there's roughly around 400 of them that have been documented quite aggressively. These collapses are our history. The patterns we see today, they're not new. We've given them a bunch of fancy new words. But when you take away the words, when you just look at human behavior in its purest, most direct form, we clearly see that we are really, in many ways, just building yesterday over. We aren't making the kind of progress we should. And that is a true problem we need to address. But we can't really address it in the modern language because the modern language has become too polluted. Ideologies have corrupted words so much that we can't have an honest discussion about a real world problem. That's what I hope that this channel can do, to get rid of that toxic ideology of what modern politics has become, to return to a mindset and a thinking process of the survival imperative, where the only question that needs to be asked is, do we have a tomorrow? It's a different way of thinking. It's really one of the biggest issues that modern historians often screw up. They like to fantasize about how the past was better, or how it's romantic. It's not. The past history is brutal. Nobody has ever said the Red Death or the Black Plague were wonderful times of history. Anybody who has ever gone to bed with an empty belly can tell you starvation is not nice. These are the true hardships that our past is filled with. They weren't romantic. They weren't happy. They weren't good. They were functional. They kept our species alive. That's it. We were able to build on that foundation the modern comforts we have today. But we aren't the first group of people to do this. Rome, Sparta, the Hellenic era, the Iroquois, the Native Americans, all sorts of different groups of people. Even in Asia, when you look at the Qing dynasty or the Mongolians or other parts of the world, this is a universal fact of our existence. Our existence has always reverted to the clan, kin, substructures whenever things got tough, because it's the only thing that guaranteed us a way forward in the most horrible of circumstances of our world. This is a functionality, not a prescription, but a functionality of the very basic core of every single culture on this planet. It's not a nice functionality. It's not about equality or comfort. It's about the very bare minimum necessities of just keeping the species alive. It's a hard way to look at our culture. It's a difficult way to look at our culture. But it's the only way that we can really begin to analyze whether or not we are different than the Romans or the Hellenists or the Byzantines or any of the other 400 plus cultures we have studied that have collapsed. It's also the only way we can learn what their collapses were caused from. How can we keep the comforts we have built today and not lose them the way they lost them in their era? That is the kind of questions I hope we can explore on this channel by looking at history, not through politics, but through the very fundamental basis of what we are as human beings, the parts we need to survive, to bring in a future, to build a new future and not return to what we did in the past. Part of that means using technology, a lot of it in fact. I use artificial intelligence as a means of taking the stories I write and translating them completely out of modern language into a system that hasn't existed for 300 or more years. This is important because in order to get down to the basis of who and what we are as a species, we need to remove the language that we have now and return to a pre-political language where all that mattered is just staying alive. That is part of the challenge of this channel. Because I do use AI to take that writing, that literary translation, part of it is keeping the machine in the language of the past, not wanting to revert to modern day anthropological, sociological, or even political terms. It must stay with the clan, kin, archetype, substructure language. It seems simple in the beginning or at the surface, but when you think about our language and how much has changed over just the last 300 years, how much of our language has to be translated into things that didn't even exist back then. It's a far deeper context than what first is visible or directly perceivable. So that is the first major hurdle of this research. Can I keep the machine focused in the direction of what I hope to achieve? A neutral, non-political analysis of human behavior. So far, it has been quite interesting on how to actually program the model to be able to maintain that kind of an archetype system. But that's not the only hurdle this system has. I also use art, and that art is a chalk on burlap framework, which is historically testable and provable from the 13th century to the 17th century. It's a resource that they would have had, and it would have been circulated extensively and reused as much as possible. Their version of a modern-day chalkboard, something that was available, handy, and perfect for teaching. They could give it to their children could draw, then when it became lesson time, the burlap could have been shaken off or washed, and they could have given the lesson and then again reused for drawing or toys. It's a fascinating concept of how history shows just how scarce resources were, that they reused everything they could as much as they could. And that is really part of the process of the channel. Part of what we have done, what we have built as a society. We are always trying to improve our lives because we want to live better, more comfortably. But in that process, for some reason, at least for 400 plus societies, they've forgotten the very point of why they've built what they've built. And the lessons that history taught them is they end up losing all the comforts they've built. I don't want to return to that world. I don't want to see our society collapse and crumble back to that hideous nightmare of just pure survival. We do see that world now, in today's world, through 1 billion to 2 billion people living at that very level. It's not nice. It's not romantic. And the only people that think it is are the people that never had to have lived it, that have had comfort around their lives so much that they don't understand the true meaning of survival. So as we progress with the various stories, from news events, modern cultural situations, whatever sparks my curiosity, inquisitiveness, or creativeness at the moment to build one of these videos. The goal is to explore the behavioral patterns of who we are as humans. What causes us to want to recreate the problems that caused previous collapses? Why do we do that? I don't know that we're going to get those kind of answers. But maybe if we actually remove the language and all of the fluff and colorized sparkles of our society and begin to look at the behavior directly, maybe we can answer that together. Maybe through being able to study untold amount of information at one time, we can see the correlations, the patterns, and then we can learn to find a way to break those patterns. That's the hope that I wish for this channel. The goal to provide a lens through a mindset that no longer exists. Instead of being the rat in the maze that can't see what's around the corner, perhaps by using the machine to simulate somebody that lived 300 or more years ago, we can take the position of looking at the maze from the top down and then figure out how to navigate the rat through the maze efficiently. Meaning, we can see what we did wrong in the past. How do we incorporate that information to protect what we've built today and build on it? Let's hope that we can accomplish that, because the more I do this research, the more I see these patterns. And it's becoming so intertwined in terms of the cultural existence we live, that we are literally becoming a caricature of dozens of collapsed societies in the past. It's literally becoming that obvious once you strip the language, strip the politics, strip the ideologies, and you focus only on human behavior. It literally changes your perception of the world around you. I hope you'll join me on this journey to look at us, who we are, who our ancestors were, the sacrifices they made to give us a better future than what they had. How do we keep that and not throw it away? I guess we're going to find out together. Thank you for watching.